What's up guys, welcome back to the channel. In this video we're going to be taking a look at this Ryobi pressure washer. Customer says it just quit running on him, and so we're going to figure out what's going on with it. But if you haven't already, hit that like button, also hit that subscribe button, that really helps me out. Okay, so like I said, my customer, he says they were using it and it quit running. And I always like to get a lot of backstory as much as I can, and that really helps me narrow down and figure out where I need to start looking. So he said he loaned it out to a friend, and then when they got it back, they were using it and it quit running. So instantly what I figured was, or what I assumed was, that perhaps the customer or my customer loaned it out to their friend. Their friend used the gas that was in it and then wanted to return it to my customer. And so they took a gas can, they wanted to return it with some gas in it, so they just took some gas off the shelf, poured it in there, they blow the dust off the gas can, not realizing it's old gas. Because I would say oftentimes when things just stop running, you know, you need basically three things. You need fuel, air, and spark. Right? So if you're not getting, if it's not running, there's an issue with one of those situations. And down here in Florida, the gas seems to go bad really quick. I know I've mentioned that in several other videos. And this particular customer, actually did another video. He had a generator that he let the gas just stay in there too long. It rusted out the tank, and ended up having to replace the whole fuel tank. Just rust got in there, it messed up the carburetor. It was a big issue. This Ryobi's got a plastic tank, so we're not going to have that issue. But the gas goes bad. I mean, I want you guys to start thinking like gas is like milk. Okay, it does go bad. Now I recommend always, especially in these small engines, whether it be a lawnmower, pressure washer, generator, use ethanol-free gasoline. It's going to last longer. And also, if you know it's going to be sitting for a while, put some stabilizer in it and run. If you have a fuel shutoff switch like this, shut it off and run that engine. Drain all that gas out of that carburetor. And a lot of times these carburetors will have a little drain, a little bolt here you can take out to drain it. All right, so my customer, there was a bunch of red flags, and I said, I was messing with this because I could smell gas. I could tell it was dripping. And he goes, "Oh, I've never used that." And I said, "Man, you need to use that. This is a gravity-fed gas tank. So basically the fuel, when you turn this on and let the gas flow, you need to shut that off, because otherwise, if that intake valve is stuck open, gas is still going to be flowing into that carburetor, and it could leak into the cylinder and then also fill up the crankcase with gasoline, and you don't want that. So they don't just put these on here just for kicks. They're not going to spend extra money. You need to shut, if you have a fuel shut-off valve, if it's a gravity fed, whether it be on your pressure washer, generator, whatever, use that fuel shut-off valve, shut it off. And like I said, I would recommend running it till the engine dies after you've shut off that fuel, and that would get all that gasoline out of the carburetor, because as gas sits in that carburetor, it gets all varnish and just it'll clog it up. All right, so while I was there, I opened this up and I smelled the gas, and it smelled old. And he was like, "Man, we just were using it. And I believed him. So I'm thinking, okay, he's loaned it out to a customer or a friend, and that friend of theirs put old gas in it. So I drained all that gas out. One other thing that I noticed, like I said, I smelled gasoline leaking, was because when you're using gasoline that has ethanol in it, it will dry rot these hoses. And I'll show you a close up here in a moment, but this hose needs to be replaced too, because it's just been basically cracked from, basically all the ethanol corrodes, or almost like it's like dry rotting from the inside out, right? So one thing I did is I drained all that gas, I put some fresh gasoline in here, And my customer had told me that he was able to crank it up by spraying some starter fluid spray, and it would run on that. And so that indicates that the spark plug is good. If it is running, and I was able to do that. You don't want to run a pressure washer though without the water going through the pump. You crank up the engine, you don't have water going through that pump, it'll burn the pump up. But I did confirm that I was able to crank it up and run it for a little bit by spraying carburetor spray through there. So I was like, well, something's happening here. I'm not getting fuel into the cylinder, because it would run just fine, all right, once it was running. But real quick, I'm going to show you guys, if you don't have a spark plug tester, how you can check the spark plug. Basically, remove the spark plug, and you can keep the body of the spark plug. You have to have it ground against, you know, like the engine. And I'm going to show you, I'm going to pull the cord, and you can confirm that your spark is going, which I already knew was good on this one. Even though I knew the ignition and spark plug was good on this motor, since I was able to crank it up and run it off a starter fluid spray, I wanted to take this opportunity to show you guys this little trick. You can ground the body of that spark plug against the valve cover there, and as I'm pulling on the starter cable, you can see really closely there, if you look, you can see that spark. All right, so next thing I did was I removed the, I already had this already removed. I'm going to go ahead and remove it now and show you guys what I found. I had a commenter say that they never use a 1/4-inch impact, and man, I use this one all the time. There's so many different attachments you can put on these. Very useful tools. So basically you just have those 2 bolts there. I had to take this off for the choke, and then you have the vent tube here. So what was going on was, I was assuming I wasn't getting gas to the carburetor, so I took this hose off, and I was getting gas out of the hose. All right, so then I was curious to see what the gas looked like underneath here, inside the carburetor, I should say. So what I did was I went ahead and first I took this bolt here out to drain the gas, and no gas came out. So next thing I did was took this one out, and I'm going to show you, speaking of 1/4-inch impacts, I love this little right angle attachment right here. Helps you get into some spots. So when I took this carburetor off, first there was no gas and lean in it, even though I'm getting gas flowing to the carburetor. It was bone dry, but I want to take you to look and see what it looks like in there. So that's a sign that gas has been sitting in here for a long time. Condensation. That's like rust on the inside of this this bowl right here. So basically what's going on is that this thing has gotten clogged up somehow. Now, am I going to waste the time to rebuild this carburetor? No, I'm not. That's an argument that I see in the comments a lot. Like, so basically, when I'm doing mechanic work, I need to charge the customer $100 or more. Same with welding work. I need to charge them $100 an hour. Now, people get shocked by that, and and if you go to a shop or whatever, you're probably going to end up having to pay that. Now, you know, if I work a 8-hour day, that doesn't mean I've made $800 that day. There's so much work that goes in to getting that billable hour, behind the scenes work that no one ever sees. It's not like I'm just always, for every hour of the day, I'm able to bill a customer for that hour. But if I'm sitting here going to do something for an hour, I got to charge that customer $100. If I were to take this carburetor off and try to rebuild it, when I can go buy a carburetor that's $40 and take it off and put one on there, that's actually the cheapest way to go. And also, I don't run the risk of taking it off, cleaning it out, putting it back on, and then it running okay, or running kind of, it might crank up and run, but it might be running poorly. Then you got to take it off again. Next thing I know, I've spent 3 or 4 hours when I could have just spent 1 hour, charged them $100 for the hour, and whatever parts, let's say it's 40 bucks, 50 bucks or something. And there, he's got this, you know, we got a brand new carburetor that's going to be running great for $150 versus me wasting my time trying to rebuild a little $40 carburetor. I'm not going to do it. Now, if this carburetor was $1,000, yeah, I'd probably tear into it and start rebuilding it. Okay, so that's just why, like, these little carburetors, I would not worry about trying to rebuild it. All right, guys, so I moved the camera a little closer, and I'll show you guys how easy it is to just replace a carburetor. Now, I did get my new carburetor from a place called Jack's Small Engines. So you saw once I removed those nuts there on this one, this Ryobi generator. This gasket actually looks reusable, but I went ahead and got a new one. And I'll put a link down in the description of the part numbers and everything, and the what particular model pressure washer this is. So there's our old carburetor. You know, just nasty stuff built up, just not letting the gas, for something's clogged up between here. Now, what I did do when I realized that I was getting gas coming out of this line, that I will be replacing this line because it's corroded, or it's got cracks in it, I should say. Once I saw that, I realized I have some stoppage here. And so I did try to spray some carb cleaner, WD-40. I put some air through there, hoping I could just knock out that blockage, and I was unsuccessful at it. Like I said, I'm not going to waste a lot of time when a new carburetor is like, I think this carburetor was, you know, 30 bucks or something. I don't even know. All right, so right here we have what's like a heat shield. And also, I didn't show how to unhook these, but I'll show how to hook them back up. All right, so I'm going to reuse this. I'm going to go ahead and hook up these little levers because sometimes it's easier to hook them up with the carburetor not on the studs. So you'll have like a little gap here that goes underneath and follows underneath that little arm, like so. And this is just a little retention spring. Goes into that little hole there. So now I can slip it onto the studs. And when I'm putting on a hose, I like to spray the hose with some WD-40. Just makes it slipping it on there a lot easier, and it makes putting that hose clamp on a lot easier, because sometimes they can be quite a kind of a pain, especially if that rubber is dry. And it's even kind of a pain now with the WD-40 on there. All right, this old gasket looks like in perfect condition, and it's got the little spacers there. So I'm just going to reuse it. So now I'm going to put the breather hose back onto the air housing, air filter housing. Put that back into place. Super, super easy. And since it's kind of hard for me to put my fingers in there, I'm just going to go ahead and put this nut on the socket. Get the thread started. Dude, I use this 1/4" impact all the time. Probably one of my most used power tools. And the kit even came with a brand new choke lever. So now that I got a new fuel line hose, let's put some fuel in here and see if it cranks up and runs. And I'm going to hook up the water hose to it also. Make sure everything's running right. So the bad thing about doing a pressure washer is you need to have the
lines hooked up so you can run water through that pump as you're testing out the engine. And for those of you that are going to start squawking about me charging an hour to replace that carburetor, yeah, that carburetor took me maybe 10 minutes to install, but this is part of the job right here. Not to mention the time talking to the customer, diagnosing the problem, ordering the parts, etc. Engine cranks up good, running good. I want to put it under a load. Use that water pump. Let it warm up a little bit. But like I said, you don't want that thing to run too long without water flowing through that pump. But here I want to show you the part number on this Ryobi 2900 PSI. It's the RY802900 VNM Ryobi pressure washer. So now I'm going to shut off this fuel valve and I'm going to run this engine until it completely runs out. And again, I want to keep that water pump cool, so I'm running water through it while all that fuel line, all that gas in the fuel line and carburetor is burned out. Start to run out of gas, and there it goes.
Alright guys, so we got the problem solved. New carburetor, solved the issue. Now it's cranking up, running great. Changed that fuel line. As you saw that I ran it out, and the only reason I was keeping running that water through is so I didn't burn up the pump. That little pump down here, if that engine's running, that pump's pumping, you got to keep those pumps cool in these pressure washers. Otherwise, if it were like a generator, lawnmower, you can just walk away, just let the engine run, get that all that fuel out of the car. Now, you only have to do this if you're going to be storing it for a while. One thing I do with my gasoline, anytime I fill up my gas cans, I take a Sharpie marker and I write down the date. And just like if you've seen some of the other videos where I kind of jokingly say, you know, customers will also often say, hey, I was just in here. You know, time flies. They'll say, I was just in here two weeks ago. Add at least 6 months to that. They don't realize how fast time flies. And when I'll look at my date, I'll be like, oh man, this gas is 3, 4, 5 months old. Now, depending on where you are in the country, gas will last longer. Back when I lived in Tennessee, I could store gas for a year and these containers never had any problem. But down here in Florida, it's an issue. Stabilizer, use some fuel stabilizer. Use ethanol free if you can. It'll last, the shelf life on it is better, and it won't eat away at those rubber lines. And if you're about to store your small engine, whether it be a pressure washer or whatever, I would recommend draining all the gas out of the tank. You could unhook that line, put another line, and drain all that gas out, and burn it in your car. Put it in your car, burn it up, and store it where that's empty. Now, here's what I like to do. Like, you see my generator down here, and I have some masking tape on the gas tank, and what I like to do is write down the last time I filled it up with gas and the last time I ran it. It's more work, but I would recommend running your equipment every month, at least every month for 20-30 minutes. And that will also circulate the oil, get that oil all lubricating in the engine. It gets that carburetor kind of cleaned out. And if you're going to be storing it for a long time though, you know, put some fuel stabilizer in it, run that stabilizer through the carburetor. And then also, like right now, I could just drain this carburetor. Don't turn that fuel switch on, because then it's going to let gas go into it right now and fill up the carburetor. Then, you know, you're back to square one again. But if you have a little bit, whatever gasoline is still in that carburetor, if you had some fuel stabilizer in there, it would be even better. And also, I also like to, I take some, what I'll write down on that masking tape is the last time I changed the oil. Guys, time flies. I mean, like, I'll run this generator at least once a month, because in the event that the power goes out and I need that generator, that's the last time you want to realize that, oh crap, I got gas in it that's a year old, and or I left the fuel valve shut on and now my crankcase is full of gas. No, that's not the time. You need to be proactive and take care of it. Make sure that fuel valve is shut. You know, run it, turn that fuel valve off, run it till it's empty, it quits running, and then store it. You don't want to wait until the last, you know, when you go to need it, that you realize you have problems with your with it starting up, or you got fuel issues. And speaking of which, fuel issues, like I was going to mention before, I'm not sure if I did already, that was one of the most common things I would see coming in when I worked at that dealership, and I see now when engines aren't running right, fuel issues, bad gas, dirty gas, water in the gas, dirt in the gas, clogged lines. It's probably the most common thing that I see. Next up after that would probably be the coil, you know, depending on the engine. But then after that, it would be if maybe probably be the valves, you know, where the valves need to be adjusted. So, you know, these valves have to be adjusted, the slack in it. I'll make a video on that coming up pretty soon. But anyway, that's going to wrap it up for this video, guys. Lots of information. This video is probably too long as it is. So do me a favor, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button. That's how you support me in the channel, is just by simply hitting the like button and subscribe button. And if you do want to become a member, I'm going to have members only videos. Already have several of those out where I kind of show extra content, some behind the scenes stuff, and I've actually just recently did some work for one of my members. So I want to thank all my members, and I also want to thank all my new subscribers. Thank you so much for subscribing to the channel. I really appreciate it, and thank you for watching, and I hope these videos help you guys out. I'll see you next time.